Welcome to the Ringer Fantasy Football Show. My name is Danny Heifetz. I am joined by Danny Kelly and Craig Horlbeck, and we are previewing week 5 of the NFL season. We are in the thick of it now. We've got London games. We've got bye weeks. Nothing else set your lineups for if you wake up late on Sunday mornings or if you're in a fake time zone like DK and Craig.
Nothing like says we are fully back into the thick of the regular season than London games for some reason. London games feel like the doldrums of the season to me.
This is a good game, though. I mean, we can just hop into it. This is the game of the year this week, DK.
The game of the year?
It's in London. The game of the year is...
What a matchup.
The Jets are at the Vikings.
Is this game of the year? I had qualms with this. I saw you nominate this as the game of the year, and I was like, I don't know. I think there's
the game
other
of the year,
games
Craig.
this week.
It's the game of the year in London.
Is it?
Yeah, best London game of the year.
Yeah, best
London for that
game.
continent. Yep.
Yeah, the Jets are at the Vikings. The Vikings are giving 2.5. I always think it's funny when one team's home or not in London. So this is the Jets versus Sam Darnold. This is Sam Darnold revenge game versus the New York Jets.
Love that.
It actually feels like he will have like pent up animosity towards the Jets, right? Like this is a lot of the revenge games are like, oh, ha, revenge game. This feels like a real revenge game for Sam Darnold to like prove everyone wrong.
Do you think Darnold, like when he wakes up, the first thing he thinks about is that out with mono meme that happened and like basically has followed him around the rest of his career?
I feel like
he's been pointing.
I feel like he has a dartboard with Adam Gase's face on it, and every morning he gets up.
Yeah. I actually do think, because like I think the question is like, is Sam Darnold going to come down to earth or not? Mm-hmm. And if there's a game, honestly, I do think it's this. I it's a little armchair psychology, but DK, I actually think you're right. I feel like what Darnold's done a really good job of this year is just not thinking. Like you just sit down, read the play, don't honestly, Darnold has the Will Levis brain. He has the Will Levis instincts. He has the Will Levis intrusive thoughts. And like, there's been a couple moments this year he's gotten away with the same chest pass push to a running back that the guy dropped the pick. They were up 28-0 on the Packers. And he kept like doing a little, he was feeling himself, parentheses derogatory. And I'm kind of wondering, I feel like during the Jets, I wonder if he's going to like push it and he's going to like want to do, and like the moment that he tries to press and do cool shit, that's kind of always when it's gone wrong for him. And I wonder if I really think his ability to rein himself in will actually decide the game.
It's like he's almost Costanza-ing himself. Yeah.
Do you think there's more pressure in London or less pressure? Do you think he wants to impress this new country, these new fans? Or do you think it actually is kind of like a bye week? Because it's like, I'm not even in America. These people don't even really
No one's
like
even
football.
watching this.
Yeah.
I feel like their thoughts when they walk into the soccer stadiums are as follows. Wow, this grass is really nice. Mm-hmm. And then they're like, why are there so many, like, I feel like the next one is just all the different jerseys. Like they're randomly like, it's it's Vikings, Jets, and they're like, Jaguars jerseys and Chiefs jerseys and just people, like the European Football League from a long time ago. I think it's mostly just bewildering overall.
Yeah.
But no, this game, first of all, I don't think I've ever done this, but I actually want to predict the Monday morning headlines. If the Jets lose this game, I guarantee you the headline of the New York Post is going to be Jets seeing ghosts. Or Darnold seeing ghosts. Whoever loses, that's going to be it. But I don't know. Do you guys see that way too? Because I think the Vikings are a better team, obviously. But I do think the Jets are still the only team in the NFL who haven't played a snap while they were losing in the second half. And I don't know. I really do think it comes down to whether Darnold does dumb shit or not. Because if he doesn't, I think the Vikings are going to win.
I think it's hard to bet against Minnesota right now. Like there's other than Darnold turning back into a pumpkin, there's nothing really pointing. I mean, I think this is the best coach team in the league on both sides of the ball. And I do not feel that way about the Jets. So, I still feel very confident. I'm willing to ride this. And, even if Darnold starts getting weird, they're getting healthier. Addison's back. He looks good. Like this, Aaron Jones is healthy and back, looks good. The Vikings are great.
On the other side of the ball, what I think is pretty interesting about this is Rodgers has never faced a Brian Flores coordinated defense. And I think this is going to be really interesting to see how because how his deal is he likes to go to the line of scrimmage, survey everything, change plays up and check to the right plays or run a smoke route with his receiver. If the defense is playing a certain way, he's kind of been, and when the Jets look really good, it's like when he's being the master at the line of scrimmage and like, doing his thing. But the Vikings are just so unpredictable in terms of like where they're bringing pressure. They bring blitzes at one of the highest rates in the NFL, the second highest rate in the NFL. They have the second highest pressure rate this year. They have the most QB knockdowns and sacks this year. So they have been absolutely just making opposing quarterbacks' lives hell this year. So I don't know. I'm really excited to see that chess match between Rodgers and Flores. They've never faced off against each other. So that's going to be like one of the main things I watch in this game.
Can we agree that because it's in London, this game doesn't mean anything unless Sam Darnold looks great and Rodgers looks terrible?
Yeah, absolutely.
Sure.
Only the extremes matter.
Yeah, exactly.
I think that's right.
Yeah.
Also, once again, NFL, no breaks. We had 2 Monday Night Football games the last 2 weeks. Now we got a 6:30 a.m. Pacific game this week. No
there's
breaks.
a football game every day between now and I think almost Thanksgiving between college football. Like there's a football game every day of the week now.
I saw that. Is that just FBS or are they including FCS?
I assume there's an FCS game in there somewhere. I don't know.
Has to be including FCS. I'm like, Tuesdays? There's a Tuesday game every single week until Thanksgiving.
Yeah, it's wild, man. It's like the jungle, you know. Leaves they find the sunlight. You know what I mean? The plants grow toward the light. It's just how it goes.
Right.
Okay. Next up here, this is going to get violent.
Uh-oh.
It's Danny on Danny crime right here. We have the Giants are at the Seahawks. The Seahawks are giving 6 points. I think this is I'm prepared to be humiliated. I think the Seahawks are going to absolutely pants the Giants, and I'm terrified for this matchup. I don't know how you feel, DK.
Well, it's 2 banged up teams. Unfortunately, Malik Neighbor is probably not going to play because that would make it a lot more interesting. The Seahawks defense is missing several key guys, and I'm not really sure if they're going to get them back. I mean, we saw how big of an impact the loss of Byron Murphy, Leonard Williams, Boye Mafe, Uchenna Nwosu, like all those guys were out last week, and Jared Goff literally went 18 for 18. Like he did not have an incompletion.
And they ran the ball like crazy.
Yeah, and they ran all over the Seahawks. So like those guys being out for the Seahawks again, potentially, at least a few of them out potentially, is a huge factor.
Yeah, they missed 5 of their top 7, their front 7 guys. And I actually think 5 of 7 is the smallest fraction. I can't do off the top of my head. I think that's 70%, 71%, something.
Yeah,
like
something like that.
I can't really divide 5 by 7 off the dome, but like that's a lot. It's more than half.
Yeah.
And I mean, you saw Goff without pressure. I think the thing about it is when the Seahawks are missing that many players and the Giants had 10 days to prepare and the Giants still suck, it's like super embarrassing. So I'm not really excited for that. But this is also the Geno Smith revenge game again. And last year it was the Geno Smith revenge game and the Giants lost 24-3 and it was the most embarrassing game they played all season. And
I forgot about that. Wow.
Well, dude, Geno Smith should be the Giants quarterback. Like he was the one who was going to get, Eli was going to get benched for Geno, and then Ben McAdoo wanted to do it, and everyone, including me, was like revolted against Ben McAdoo. Well, whoops a fucking daisy. I guess we should have kept Geno Smith. Oh my God. Ben McAdoo, I owe you an apology.
Yet again, another example of why like supporting cast and just environment matters so much for a quarterback. Obviously, Geno Smith, like whatever, how many years later, ended up being really good. But if you look at what the Seahawks offense is doing this year, this is like I'm in heaven right now watching the Seahawks offense. It's so much fun to watch. Geno Smith is number 1 in the league in passing yards, 295 passing yards a game. Number 1 in passing attempts. They are number 1 in the neutral situation pass rate. So they are passing a ton, even when the score is close. Geno is 5th best in off-target rate, just 5%, despite facing the 6th highest pressure rate. So he's just dealing even in the face of pressure, even though their offensive line stinks. I think DK Metcalf has been a bit of a revelation this year. I've always thought he's good, as you guys know, but like he has ascended to a new level in my eyes. There's still, mistakes here and there. Like I think if you're really getting, if you're really annoyed at him, he has a couple penalties. He had that fumble last week, which was really important. But like, if you look at what he's doing, there's 2 receivers in the NFL right now with 3 100-yard games. It's Nico Collins and DK Metcalf. Like Metcalf has been one of the best receivers in the NFL, like straight up this year. And it's been really fun to see Kenneth Walker come back. We didn't talk about the Kenneth Walker double backflip run from Monday Night Football.
One of the craziest things I've ever seen in a football
I've literally never seen that. I've seen guys get flipped over a defender one time, but he like went both directions.
It looked like he was like wrestling.
Yeah. I think what's like insane is
jiu-jitsu.
When that happens in the WWE, it's choreographed.
Right.
The fact that you could do the double flip just trying 2 guys actually just fighting on a football field is crazy.
Yeah.
Also, I know we love to shit on the refs. You have to shout out the refs in that moment. They did not blow the whistle. The refs would blow the whistle if anything happens in the NFL. For some reason, Kenneth Walker's like writhing around on the ground with this guy, flipping like over left and right, flopping like a fish. And they're like, no, play's live.
Yeah.
That's like, what? UFC has like fight of the night. They should really like do a thing at the end of that game. They just hand Ken Walker a check and they're like, thanks, guy. That was fucking sick. Everyone involved in that play gets a little payday.
I'm happy Ken Walker's back and healthy. He really is like a little Saquon Barkley over there on the West Coast, and he is just so awesome to watch. All these skill players on the Seahawks, it feels like. I mean, JSN is kind of starting to blossom a little bit. Lockett's still around, obviously. DK Metcalf is like playing the best he ever has. Walker and Charbonnet. The whole offense is really humming right now. This whole Ryan Grubb thing that we were very excited about in the offseason has paid dividends. They're running a lot of plays, and it's paying off for a lot of guys. So it's cool to see Walker be back and healthy, and the whole offense be healthy right now.
Number one in points per game right now. Kenneth Walker is obviously he's missed 2 games, but
he always does something I've never seen. Ken Walker, like in this game, even just he ran horizontally along, like in parallel with the line, the yard line, longer than I've ever seen a player do it on a run.
He kind of reminds me of a crab.
You gotta go sideways to go forward.
Yeah, he like the way he strafes.
He's like kind of always like shuffling left and right with his legs moving quickly up and down. I don't know.
Yeah. He has like he is like almost a little bow-legged the way he
He does. Yeah.
But it's like why he has such great balance, I think.
Yeah, the Seahawks are going to crush the Giants. Not excited, especially without Malik Nabers.
You should be excited. Heifetz, losing is good.
Yeah, losing's good. Losing's good. That's
He's remembering
he
that.
says to himself.
Losing is good. Okay, games I'm earnestly excited for. The Ravens are at the Bengals. Ravens are giving 2.5. This is a huge game for the Bengals because they started 0-3, and it's like the whole thing of like how many teams have ever made the playoffs after 0-3. But if there's a team that's going to do it, it feels very Bengals-y to make the playoffs at 0-3. So they won last week. They're 1-3. But now the difference between being 2-3 versus 1-4 in the AFC North, versus the Ravens this week, it's the difference between being half a game up on Baltimore if they win this week versus 2.5 behind Baltimore. So it's about swing-wise as big as they're going to have all year. I know that all the games count equally, but like this game is going to swing it as much as anything.
Totally. And both the offenses look good right now. Obviously, the Ravens looked awesome last week, but the Bengals quietly, since that week 1 letdown against New England, Joe Burrow and this team, T. Higgins came back 2 weeks ago. Joe Burrow, since week 1, 2nd in touchdowns, 2nd in passer rating, 3rd in success rate, 5th in yards, 8th in fantasy.
Yeah. I think T. Higgins makes a bigger difference than people give him credit for. I think T. Higgins is one of the more underrated receivers in the NFL. Maybe it's just because he looks like a tight end or something out there.
It's because he wears 85. Big.
Yeah, but he is so good, man. I feel like he's one of those players where Burrow's just like, fuck it, he's down there somewhere. He's that type of player. He'll come down with it. I think and also it just helps with, defenses can't focus in solely on Jamar Chase when T. Higgins is out there running routes. Like he makes such a big difference for them. So I really hope that the Bengals can turn this into a game. From a fantasy point of view, I really hope the Ravens don't get, unless you're unless you have Derrick Henry on your team, the hope is this is like a back and forth game where the Ravens don't get an early lead and then just slowly, grind the Bengals into dust with their run game. Because if you look at when the Ravens have been leading this year, they are by far the run heaviest team in the NFL. It's just like they're first in rush rate, last in pass attempts per game. And when they do pass, it's mostly to the running backs. Like they play such a ball control type of like identity and type of offense. That's like why you're not seeing Mark Andrews run any routes or Isaiah Likely barely runs any routes, because they are just leading the whole game and they just run the hell out of the ball. So I really hope that doesn't happen in this game, because I just want all the other guys to get into the action too.
It's really underrated how much of team building in the offseason is just based on how the previous season ended. And that's all the teams think about. And the Ravens, that AFC Championship game that they outplayed the Chiefs and they lost, obviously Zay Flowers had the reaching for the end zone. It got knocked out of his hands and they lost. But really, I think John Harbaugh, when he lies awake at night, the Ravens had the fewest rushes to running backs in the history of the Ravens. Was the fewest ever in that game. They had like 6 carries for running backs in that game.
Yeah. And
that's why they got Derrick Henry. They lost to Derrick Henry all these times, him grinding out in the fourth quarter. And so whether the Ravens will be like this all season, I actually have a lot of doubt. But like last week, the Cowboys rush defense sucks. You know what I mean? A lot of the teams, the Bills are like, the Bills are very much like their defensive personnel is very much, they play nickel. They're very much, they're the too high team that wants to make you run and dink and dunk down the field. And the Ravens are like, we're going to bull you off the field. But this is really 3 terrible run defenses in a row between Dallas, Buffalo, and Cincinnati, because the Bengals defensive line, they're actually kind of a lot like the Seahawks, where you've got Geno and Burrow are playing well. You have great skill players, but the offensive line is kind of questionable and the defensive line is freaking decimated.
Right.
And so kind of similar stylistic. So I think that Ravens this week should be able to control the game. But long-term, I'm curious if they could do that against better teams. And then the Bengals, I think they're the rainbow strip, where someone asked what that was, which is Mario Kart when they're rainbow and you hit it and you go faster. It's like the Bengals, Washington,
changes.
and Arizona. Yeah, all these teams with terrible defenses that are going to be shootouts every week. So
yeah, so I think from like again fantasy point of view, it makes it really risky to play a guy like Zay Flowers in this game, or obviously Mark Andrews and Isaiah Likely. Probably better off on your bench or on the waiver wire at this point.
You can't start Mark Andrews.
Yeah,
I was going to say real quick, Mark Andrews. Obviously, you would play Evan Ingram or Zach Ertz over like Mark Andrews, right?
Yeah.
Hunter Henry.
Yep.
Cade Otton.
Yeah,
probably.
Yeah.
Would you play Johnny Munt over Mark Andrews for Minnesota?
God,
maybe just to prove a point. Maybe just
would you start Eric
put
All?
Mark Andrews on notice?
What about Eric All?
Yeah,
the Bengals'
probably.
second tight end there with Mike Gesicki over Mark Andrews.
I'm just going to keep asking for more names, and I'll say yes. Anyone you want, just pick a tight end.
Theo Johnson.
Sure, more.
Yeah,
another one.
Well, I mean, anyone who could have a catch could have more than Mark Andrews.
Anyone who,
more.
It's like,
more.
Was that Michael Cohen? Who was
10
that?
times?
More.
50 times?
More.
500 times?
More. And then he goes, probably. 500 times? Probably.
Should we do that with Mark Andrews, but less?
How many
points did
ends?
he have? 10?
Less.
5?
Less.
1.
Probably.
Okay. All right, next game here. We have the Bills-Texans. Bills are giving a point. This is the Stephon Diggs revenge game.
I love the revenge games.
I think this is game of the year, kind of.
Yeah, Josh Allen versus Stroud with the Diggs through line is pretty good.
Pretty good. And the Texans we talked about this last week, and then they squeaked out another win. They're like the bizarro Jags. Like the Jags could be 3-1 and the Texans could be 1-3, but the Texans are 1-3, and they're a team that has all these great pieces, and they're not really clicking still right now, and they're very undisciplined. They're like a movie with a great cast and a bad script, or like a bad director. It's just like not working, even though on paper it seems great. And it might be because of the way they're being defended. I saw a great note from Anthony DeBundo, who writes a good gambling piece every week on The Ringer. The Texans led the league in percentage of offensive plays against cover 2 defenses this year. Last year it was 27th. So teams are defending the Texans like way differently. And
they can't run.
And they can't run the ball.
I saw this from Nate Tice, actually. The Texans have faced the longest average distance to go on third down. Basically, he said on average, they've been moving backwards on first and second down.
And they're not
literally
throwing
they're having more third and longs than any other team. They've thrown on every single third and fourth down this year.
I think so for all the discussion about Diggs and Nico Collins, and again, Nico's ascended to a top 5 receiver. Tank Dell has been slow, but he's still really good. For all the discussion, the Texans are the epitome of they want to run the ball to set a play action. We can have an hour-long conversation that I don't want to have about how much you actually do need to run the ball to actually get defenses to bite on play fakes. But the point is, whatever you think, the Texans actually, like Bobby Slowick, who runs that offense, believes you need to be able to hammer it on first and second down. And like they believe in the concept of third and manageable. A lot of those Shanahan guys do. And so there's a whole other school of thought that you should be passing on early downs and trying to skip third down altogether. Yeah. And running really when you have the lead.
Funny
but the Texans don't do that.
They run so much on first down. They should just start running play action on first down because everyone thinks they're going to run. Like they have established that they run on first down so much that now play action on first down would probably do really well.
Well, I think the thing people forget is that because the Texans played so well and they shredded the Browns in the wild card round, I think, and he played well in the Colts in week 18. I think this is how the Texans were last year. The Texans won a lot of ugly games. Yeah. Like when Stroud was doing, like the numbers looked all right with the touchdowns, no interceptions looked great. It was crazy for a rookie. But overall, the drives were kind of weird. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like Stroud wasn't like some like really great, well-operated offense. It was Stroud was making a lot of plays.
They need to make fewer penalties too. Like this team is so annoying to watch right now.
That's a classic, like, it's the HR meme of, like, hitting on, you know what I mean? It's like if Mike McCarthy's team led the league in penalties right now, we'd be shredding him, but D'Amico Ryans is hot, like, figuratively and literally, it's just a hot person. And so I think no one wants to be like, D'Amico Ryans not good, but, like, yeah, it's his team and a ton of penalties. Okay. Next one we have here, also, wait, just quick shout. Bills-Texans. Diggs is plus 160 to score a touchdown. He's 13-1 to score 2 touchdowns. Just throwing that out there.
Okay.
And this next game, Panthers-Bears. Bears are giving 3.5. I just want to shout out, I have put $5 on a FanDuel parlay for DJ Moore and Stephon Diggs to both score 2 touchdowns in their revenge games against their teams. And $5 wins $1,200.
Yeah, I was going to say, I'm sure that one's going to win. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm just throwing it out. But anyway, yeah, Panthers-Bears, this is just like, what a kick in the nuts for Panthers fans. that Bryce Young's benched and like I feel like Caleb Williams is going to have his breakout this week. DK, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely tough because the Bryce Young trade got the Bears Caleb Williams for those keeping track at home. I don't know. What have you guys thought of Caleb Williams so far? Obviously, like the inaccuracies have really been bugging me, but at the same time, I think over the last couple of weeks, he's had much more or way more flashes than he did the first couple of weeks, where he looked completely out of sorts and just basically lost. What have you guys thought of him the last couple of weeks? Because I think he's like moving in the right direction. And like you said, Heifetz, this could be kind of the breakout game where he plays much cleaner than the last few weeks.
I think he's had a lot of tough luck with these like wide open players, to be honest. Like I think he does a lot of the hard stuff well. Like his touchdown to DJ Moore in the back of the end zone was like beautiful. He like read through the progressions. The pocket was collapsing on him. He threw like a dime through a tiny window. But then there's like 4 other instances where there are guys wide open in the end zone and he like sails it 8 yards over their head. To me, I'm still like attributing that to like, obviously Caleb Williams can make that throw. Like that, he is the type of guy who can make that throw.
He was not inaccurate in college, so it's not like I feel like the accuracy you don't just lose it.
No, it's like I think it's a little bit like deer in the headlights. He's still getting his footing. He's still a little nervous, like still figuring things out. And you just have to hope that like through playing more, you will grow out of that, and that it's not a Sam Darnold situation where you're in such a bad environment that you are seeing ghosts and you can't recover.
There was that DJ Moore play in last week's game where DJ Moore had a step on the defender. Basically, it was like a hole shot between the safety and the corner and the right side of the field, and it would have been a touchdown. Like if you made the throw, put a little less on it, it would have been a touchdown. But Caleb Williams kind of like gunned it in there and missed him by like 5 feet. And DJ Moore was asked about that this week, and basically, and this is a good illustration of, I think, some of the more nuanced stuff and why it's so hard to play quarterback in the NFL. It's like basically, Caleb thought he was running a slightly different route than what DJ Moore thought he was supposed to be running based on like the sight adjustment, based on how the defense was lined up. It's like both players have to be on the exact same page timing wise and like, what the defense is doing wise. And so it just like, it looked really, really ugly, but basically it was just a misread because they were not on the same page with how the route was supposed to be run. So that's the type of stuff, you see in the NFL all the time, but it's just like, I think it's been magnified because Caleb Williams has missed so many throws early on.
And to that point, that kind of, I think you're totally right, DK, and that kind of like detail-oriented micro adjustments that are the difference between being open or not. Where they're not so detail-oriented is Lincoln Riley's offense at USC. Way more vibes, way more kind of just like there's not as much
run around and do stuff.
Run around and do stuff, guys. Like, just in Lincoln's going to sit there and look pretty. So yeah, I think that's a really good call. But I think I also kind of think Caleb, Odunze and Moore are getting open though. So I really do think that Caleb's going to have a good game.
Yeah.
But yeah, at the same time, we'd be lying if it wasn't like a little FOMO with Jaden Daniels right now. I also think Deontay Johnson, if he plays, is a total must start for Carolina. We don't have to link around the Panthers, but all I'll say is Deontay Johnson, like there's a whole new class of receivers we can touch on as we go here, but there's a whole new definition of must start, like all new faces, and he's one of them.
100%. I do think Chicago laying 3.5 is kind of a lot. Panthers aren't that bad offensively.
Dalton has this offense kind of humming right now.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. It's 3.5 with Caleb is a lot.
It's two straight games where the Bears, where it's like the odds makers, just no one knows what to make of the game because it's like, laying 3.5, but like, what are you going to do? Bet on the Panthers? And then last week, it's like the
Bears
Rams.
defense is really good.
Yeah, it's just a weird team, to be honest. But I think the Bears are a team that I think the way we watch them and think about them in like mid-November, we're going to be like, that's such a different team than September. Like, I think that everyone's going to get going pretty quickly. And Keenan Allen might play this week, so that's a huge difference too. All right. Next game here, we got the Cardinals are at the Niners, and the Niners giving 7.5 points.
Yeah, these games are always fun. Cardinals always play the Niners well. They're always like high scoring, kind of crazy games. I feel like this year we need to talk about Brock Purdy a little bit more. I feel like this is the year where he's actually putting the team on his back more than he ever has. And I even think he's like a buy low in fantasy. He's 14th points per game right now. But a lot of the underlying stuff that Purdy's doing is super impressive considering the circumstances. Second in the NFL in yards, but he only has 5 touchdowns, which is why his points are down a little bit. But man, third in success rate, third in EPA per dropback, leads the league by a mile in completions of 20 plus yards downfield. And he's been doing this with like no Debo, no Kittle, obviously no CMC. Ayuk has been in a massive slump. The offensive line hasn't been great. And if you look at, they played the Jets week 1, they played the Vikings. Then he popped against the Rams, not a great defense. And then he played New England last week. Like, they have played tough defenses to start the season. They're only 2-2. I think it's extremely impressive what Purdy has been doing. I feel like more than ever before, he has silenced any doubters. And I'm like, Brock Purdy is definitely for real.
Yeah, DK, do you think that Kyle Shanahan is just a system coach being held up by Brock Purdy?
Right. I think one really interesting statistical note for Purdy is like last year he benefited from the most yards after the catch, I think, of any quarterback in the NFL. This year he has the fewest.
Yep.
So that is just like, to me, a great example of he's playing out of his mind. And I think the eye test has shown that. Like, when things break down, he can run around a little bit. He can escape. There was a note from a press conference this week that he said his 10-yard split was faster than, I can't remember who it was. Was it CMC?
Yeah.
It was Debo. Maybe it was Debo.
It was
It was
Debo and
McCaffrey and
CMC.
Debo.
It was both.
He said that. He said, fact check me on it. And he's fucking right. His 10-yard split was faster than Debo and McCaffrey, which that actually made me go all the way back down to like the beginning of my career and be like, I don't know anything about this sport. I would have put my life savings that wasn't true. Yeah. I don't know anything.
It was 1/100th of a second faster than I think one of them, and 2/200ths faster than the other one.
That's still
it's unbelievable. I mean, that's
crazy.
Basically the first 10 yards of the 40-yard dash. He's faster than Deebo Samuel.
That's nuts,
crazy.
Dude. That's so nuts. I'm sure all the ghosts are screaming right now, telling us about the math of the 40-yard dash.
Well,
whatever.
Regardless, it's like when I picture Brock Purdy this year,
you don't picture Deebo Samuel speed.
The thing I picture is him kind of like escaping out of the pocket and keeping the play alive, keeping his eyes downfield. A lot of times he'll like get outside the pocket and still make a pass. Sometimes he'll scramble for 5 yards when it looks like he's supposed to be sacked. You know, like he's like keeping the offense moving in the right direction. I've been really impressed with what he's done this year. I'm 100% with you, Craig. I'm just like, I don't know, man. Last year I was a doubter and a hater. This year I'm just like, he's good. He's good.
The truth is, Brock Purdy is playing, like stylistically, playing this season the way we used to love Patrick Mahomes playing.
I was just about to say that it's very Mahomes-esque, especially the way he is operating outside of the pocket. Like,
yes.
I'm not sure how many quarterbacks I would take right now outside of the pocket over Brock Purdy.
And he's also keeping, and you mentioned this, DK, he's last in yards after. It's a total reversal, whereas he stepped in and we're like, oh, anyone could throw to Kittle and Debo. And again, it was always about the creation. This year, there's no yards after catch. Brock Purdy's keeping the deep ball alive. That's the other difference.
He's launching
getting out. Jawan Jennings, Ayuk, there's been some misconnections, but it wasn't, I don't think.
Like I said, he leads the league in completions 20+ yards down the field.
Exactly. And so it's what we love. And meanwhile, Mahomes has kind of become like the Brock Purdy where they're 4-0. Like, is this guy even playing well?
What is going on with that?
This is another I know the
Mahomes
Chiefs
is like early career Brady now, just like grinding out 20 to 17 wins.
We'll talk about Sunday Night Football a little later, but we can get to that. I have a Chiefs question for you guys, but so that's really fun. Purdy's playing great. We'll join the cult. Next up, I don't know if this game is good slop or I'm excited. I feel like I'm excited for one half of it and the rest is slop. But the Packers are at the Rams this week. The Packers are giving 3.5. I feel like Stafford is the best 1-3 quarterback I've seen in a very long time. Like Matt Stafford is just playing. He reminds me of Carmi in the beginning of The Bear, where it's this Michelin star chef showing up and then everyone doesn't know to cook. And Rishi's like buying meat and out of trunks and selling Coke. And he's just like, get off my expo. But like Stafford's just on another planet from everyone else. And then everyone else kind of sucks. And then now they're playing the Packers. But I'm curious what you guys think. But I feel like the Packers are going to run them off the field.
The Rams defense has been really, really bad. Basically, anybody who plays them can play really well. I feel like Stafford's getting a lot of media love right now. I don't know if it's like this particular time, but like, man, everybody on TV loves pointing out how fucking good Stafford is. And I'm not saying it's not true. He is. But like, the Rams aren't that good. And I don't know what it's like. Stafford is like everywhere right now, at least in my little algorithm media world. Your favorite quarterback's favorite quarterback is Matt Stafford.
I think, ironically, it's kind of like where he was with the Lions like 8 years ago, where everyone's like, man, can you imagine if this guy's on a good team? But now it's like the Rams are just worse than when he left the Lions. But I think that when I look at Matt LaFleur for the Packers, the head coach, has never lost to Sean McVay for the Rams. Like, I don't believe he's ever lost to him. And then, I mean, this is the biggest disparity, I think, between this is their 5th meeting. LaFleur's 4-0 with the Packers. This is the biggest disparity in the talent between these teams. And I feel like the only reason it's 3.5 is it's at LA. But I'm like, I got to tell you, I'm not afraid of the crowd at SoFi Stadium. I'm just going to tell you right now, there's probably going to be more Packers games in LA at the game than there will be Rams fans, number one. And then 2, All right, so the Packers got walloped by the Vikings last week and then came back. To tell you the truth, sometimes there's a game where it's like, oh, like all these X's and O's happened. I swear to God, Jordan Love just watched a bunch of Brett Favre highlights before that Vikings game and was like, oh, I'm the guy. And then he showed up and did a Brett Favre stat line. And like this week, I think he just buckles down and goes, it stops trying to be Brett Favre.
Yeah,
and I think the Packers, I don't know, Packers 3.5, it's the best bet of the whole week to me.
I agree.
You guys, this is a Rams question. Can you guys, would you want to talk me out of playing Tutu Atwell this year or this week for the Rams?
Yeah, I would play. I feel like Tutu Atwell gets the ball when it's like a weird Demarcus Robinson throws it to him. I feel like Jordan Whittington's Cooper Kupp at the interim.
Yeah. Well, I think Whittington is sort of playing the Cooper Kupp role, but then you still have a really good number 2, Puka Nacua maybe, in Tutu Atwell. Tutu Atwell right now has a 20% explosive play rate, which is like one of the top numbers in the NFL.
He's like their Rashid Shaheed. Like every game, he's doing
that's a
like
great call. Yeah.
4 catches, 80 yards. He's basically done that for the last 3 weeks. I think they scheme him up nicely to get
I'm very
him the ball in
tempted to
space.
play him this week, and I don't know if it's a stupid idea or not.
I maybe I'm naive. I'd rather play Whittington because I feel like you're right that Atwell's boom or bust. I think Atwell's more likely to do the 3 or 23, and then Whittington I think is more likely to get you something like 12 points. But I agree. It's just watching the Rams. The Rams are low key like a don't watch the team play team right now. It's like it's brutal. I also, while we're here, I just have to say Jaden Reed is a must start fantasy football player.
There's
a
whole
jumbling
passing game right now for the Packers is, from a fantasy point of view, much easier to figure out, right? Because you have Christian Watson, very unlikely to play. I think he's still not practicing. He's probably
going to be
going
out
to play for a few weeks. Yeah. And so that eliminates sort of the problem we had where the team was just rotating their receivers. Now it's Wicks, Dubs, and Jaden Reed, who Jaden Reed has been maybe the player who's created more fantasy points than expected than anyone in the NFL. I haven't checked that stat.
He's
he's
the wide receiver 5 in fantasy right now. No, I mean, you're starting him.
Every time he touches the ball, I'm like, man, this guy is so freaking good. He reminds me a little bit of another guy like that. Reminds me of Rashid Shaheed, just where every time it touches the ball, it's like he's creating an explosive play. He's just electric, whether it's an end around or just a slant. He can go deep. He has a really good skill set. And now, like I said, there's just less of a question mark of like which receivers are going to play.
This is why fantasy is so fun. I mean, you could have not drafted a wide receiver until the 6th round. You could have then drafted Chris Godwin, Rashee Rice, and Jaden Reed and been absolutely killing it this year.
Yeah,
until now, Rashee Rice on IR.
But yet, maybe not gone for the season.
No, kind of a good thing. I don't know what's going on with that man's knee. They're like, we need to wait for the swelling to go down to like do more tests. I don't really know why that is. IR is a good sign. I feel like he definitely didn't tear his ACL. Like we got to know by now. It's
Patrick
been a week.
Mahomes said something this week. He was like, hopefully we can get Rashee Rice back sooner than later or something like that. It was basically insinuating maybe he's not out for the year, which is wild.
I
think it's more likely he plays this year than he doesn't.
I don't know what is going on over there.
I don't know.
I got no idea what's happening over there.
I feel like usually if your guy is so hurt he cannot play football for a year, you know that pretty soon. So every day that goes by that they're not announcing he's done for the year, to me, increases the likelihood that he plays this year.
Do you think they don't want to tell Mahomes he's out for the year because Mahomes will feel bad? Because Mahomes hurt his knee? Do you think they just don't want to tell Mahomes?
I don't know about that. If that's how fragile Mahomes is mentally, I'd be worried.
Well, maybe he is fragile. I don't know. He's only one. We don't know we don't know how Mahomes handles adversity, if you're being honest. You know what I mean?
Right. Even though what is he like 10-0 when they're down 10-0 in games?
Well, yeah, but the outcome, that's my point. He keeps winning the games he's supposed to lose. Maybe he actually just melts down if he actually loses anything. We don't know.
It's fair.
Okay. Next one here. We got Browns are at the Commanders. Jeez. I can't remember a game that had such opposite vibes of the most beloved young up-and-coming star in Jaden Daniels versus the most reviled has-been in Deshaun Watson.
If Watson plays poorly in this game against one of the worst defenses in the NFL, do you think he's going to get benched? Do you think benching is on the table at this point, or are they just going to keep going with this forever?
What's your read on that, Heifetz? Like, how committed are they going to be to Deshaun moving forward?
Moving forward? Okay, so,
they got to just invent an injury, I feel like.
So there's a lot going on there. I to tell you the truth, I do think long-term, I wonder about the new cases that have arisen with Deshaun Watson, and I wonder if contractually there's an out for them. I don't know how any of that works at the specifics, but I do wonder if they would be able to basically unguarantee a lot of the money they owe him and void it. And that I think that they would probably want to get out of that contract that way. Barring that, they're screwed. And I think frankly, I think the Browns owner, Jimmy Haslam, is very involved in all this. And it's a mix of like some of the smartest people in football. Like, they have Andrew Berry, who, one of the smarter GMs out there. And then you also have Paul DePodesta, which is a Moneyball guy, like the actual like Moneyball people are in this front office with this owner, Jimmy Haslam, who's like a total wild card. And so it's a very funny mix of people, of very emotional decision makers and very analytic decision makers, and how they come to like whether you bench this guy. I don't know. I bet they change their minds on it all the time, to be totally honest with you. But
I mean,
they probably should bench him for Jameis.
Can you have a $50 million a year backup? Like, can you do that?
It worked great last year, right? When they made, I think that's what it comes down to. It sounds nuts, and yet, all right, like when you can't do it in week 1 or week 2, but at some point you're so bad that the players in practice if they see Jameis Winston's better, at some point you need to do it. And again, the part I can't get over, I know the Browns are banged up. Denzel Ward, their offensive line, Myles Garrett's 2 feet. Like Myles Garrett also has an Achilles thing. Having said that, the Browns were just as beat up last year, and Joe Flacco brought them to the playoffs. Like they were just as injured last year. And that's where I'm like, man, Jameis, I think Jameis would be better.
Hasn't Stefanski won Coach of the Year like 2 of the last 3 seasons?
Didn't he win last year?
He's going to get fired because he can't get Watson going.
I just think this is the weirdest team in the history of the NFL.
It's almost like every year they have to start Deshaun for a month. He'll suck, and then they can go to the backup and be better. But you have to start him because you're paying him $250 million guaranteed. So it's like you can't just come into the season being like, we're benching this guy.
It really is the worst trade ever. I think what's funny about the Deshaun Watson trade is that when we thought he was real, like Kevin Clark tweeted this, when we thought Watson was awesome at football, we were like, this is the worst trade ever. This is disgusting and despicable. Now he's bad at football. I think it's the worst trade in the history of sports if it stays like this. I think it has to be there.
Yeah.
It's in any conversation.
Do you think if nothing ever happened and he stayed in Houston, like, do you think he'd just be awesome right now?
Well, nothing ever happened. Like nothing ever happened?
Yeah.
But
I mean, probably. Yeah. Like that is the question, of course. On the other side of the ball.
Okay.
Speaking of, there's no way to answer that, Craig. I think, yes, you probably see.
My question was, how much of this do you think is mental, or how much do you think of it is like his also physical decline, the injuries, the whole thing?
I think a lot of it's mental.
Yeah.
I think a lot of it's mental. I think, yeah.
On a more fun note, Jaden Daniels looks awesome. However,
that tone shift is going to be every time the game, every drive. It's going to be
the announcers.
Oh my God.
Anyway,
what do they do with this guy? And then it's like, and here comes Jaden Daniels on the field. Thank God. Like
thank Christ.
Lord of the God help the announcers with the, oh no, Daniels gone. And they're like, oh,
who's doing
Watson
this game? I hope it's Brady.
Poor Brady. Wait, let me look.
They wouldn't give him that, right?
Washington
I feel like they would.
Announcers.
It's Fox, dude. It's Fox.
Oh my God. So for these, so also everyone listening, so we do the Sunday show. We recap everything. We have Instagrams and TikToks now, Ringer Fantasy Football. Comment on them. And also the awards we do. We're going to put out the categories that we do. And we're going to read a couple. You guys can nominate people for these categories. And we want you to email in ringerfantasyfootball@gmail.com, comment on socials, nominate people. And if anyone's watching this Browns Commanders game, please tag us with any of the, the announcers are struggling. We understand that because that's hard.
Brady's
Greg
calling
Olsen.
Nuggets.
Brady's calling Cardinals Niners. Yeah.
So poor Greg Olsen has to deal with the,
of course,
tone shift.
The better announcer, of course.
Yeah.
Coddling Brady as usual.
First off, a plug. Stephen Ruiz wrote a really good article today on theringer.com about Jaden Daniels, like the start for the Commanders and how the Cliff Kingsbury offense has been working so well, and how Jaden Daniels has even helped like elevate the scheme that they're doing even to a higher level. Basically, he pointed out several plays where the scheme call, like the call on the field, didn't really work, and Jaden Daniels still made it work. So he's been doing incredible things for this offense. A couple notes from that I thought were really interesting. The Commanders have by far, like by a mile, the highest no huddle rate in the NFL so far. And it's not even that they're running tempo. They just don't huddle. And they go to the line and kind of like look at everything, figure out what's going on with the defense, call the play. So it's basically a no huddle, but not a hurry up. And so I think they're just preventing opposing defenses from subbing out their players when they get into the right looks. And so it's really cool how they're doing that.
So it feels like with a rookie, that's impressive to do, right?
Oh, 100%. Yeah.
It's nitty gritty, but it's worth getting into this because there are two pieces of this that are governed by the rules of the league that I don't think we talk about ever that like totally change football. And this goes back to what Sean McVay did with the Rams in 2018. If the offense subs someone, the defense by the rule is allowed to sub two. So the advantage to your getting is like the defense can't necessarily sub if the offense doesn't. So that's like the advantage. Is the defense has to be able to sub if the offense does. That's a rule. The other one is this is what McVay did to Goff when he turned him around immediately, where Goff was one of the worst picks ever, and then he came in with the mic. It's not just for the play calls when the coach radios to the quarterback. They can talk to them until there's 15 seconds left in the play clock. Right. So what the Rams would do is the same thing. They get to the line, McVay would look at the defense, and McVay would tell them what to do based on what they saw before. And they wanted to get there because the mic cuts off in 15 seconds. So I don't know exactly what's going on in Washington, but Cliff and Jaden, like there's not a dialogue. I guess it's technically a monologue, but that helps rookie quarterbacks adjust too.
Right.
But anyway, it's an interesting little gamesmanship of when they get there at 25 seconds left, he can see the defense and it's like the coach is talking to the quarterback. So it helps.
I think it's both of them. I think that helps in terms of just getting to the line and figuring out what the defense is doing and getting into a play is really good. But Jane Daniels, to his credit, has done a really good job of getting his players set. Like I mentioned this, I think on the Sunday show after the game, that big touchdown pass to Terry McLaurin that sealed the game against the Bengals. Like no one was set with like 5 seconds left on the play clock, and he got them all put in the right place immediately. And like, he is just on it. So I think, obviously huge credit to Jane Daniels. But Craig, what were you going to say?
I have to say, guys, I think this is the first game where I would like to nominate Costanza.
Oh, that's really... And also, someone asked what the hell we're talking about. There's a Seinfeld episode where George Costanza's like, I'm done with everything. Nothing
we should play the clip. We can just
let's play the clip. We'll play the clip.
If every instinct you have is wrong, then the opposite would have to be right.
Someone else pointed out, by the way, that this is a play on the old commercials. It was like an old jingle by Menon. Do you guys remember this?
Well,
were you old enough for that?
The Costanza jingle is different. That's not the same episode as the Do the Opposite episode. The Costanza jingle is an episode where George basically wants to linger in his date's brain, so he comes up with the jingle so they don't forget him.
He tries to brand himself. He's I want her to remember
me. He brings it up. He goes, by Menon, and it starts Costanza. And then he meets the woman at a park, and I think he leaves something at her apartment so that she has to give it back to him, which is another ploy for him to have to see her again.
Craig, this is like the hobbled Herbert thing. It just gets stuck in your
branding,
head.
And then they sit down on the park bench, and she's like, George. Herbert. She's like, George, when I first met you, I found you quite, repulsive. And he's like, okay. She's like, but I just can't get you out of my head. Costanza.
I think that's how a lot of people listen to the show. Is people listen the first time, they're like, I find this show pretty
repulsed.
And then they're just thinking, and then they're like, hobbled Herbert.
Hobbled Herbert. And they're like,
hobbled Herbert. Yeah. They just can't get it out of your head.
But I mean, come on, right? Who's betting the Browns? This game's in Washington.
Right.
The Browns have horrible vibes. If you look,
I hate to say it. Yeah.
Commanders haven't really played anybody that's that good on defense. The Browns, even though they're a little banged up, they're still like a top 10 D in the league.
Dude,
and many metrics.
Craig's on the money here because Jaden Daniels has just ran through terrible defenses for the last 3 weeks. I think he's totally right. Yeah.
Also,
Browns or Costanza.
Yeah. It's like nobody wants this to happen.
Nobody wants this to happen.
It will.
All right, next game here. All right, Browns are going to be in Costanza conversation. Bad slop. Colts are at the Jaguars. Jags are giving 3 points. I mean, fantasy purposes, we don't know exactly what's going on with the Colts quarterback situation. Recording this Thursday afternoon. It's not good. If Joe Flacco plays, I think Michael Pittman and Josh Downs are must starts because of how much he's going to just distribute the ball. And then if Richardson plays, I don't even think you should play him just because he's got this hip injury. I don't think they're going to run him a ton off how last week
And then
went.
if they don't have Jonathan Taylor, it's like, I don't know what they're going to do. They just shouldn't.
I don't
play
think
Richardson.
Taylor will play. I think you can.
No. Yeah.
I think it'd get kind of nuts, I think, if Jonathan Taylor played.
I do lean that I think Richardson will play. He was limited in practice today, Thursday.
They're going to be in a weird spot. They're not going to want to run him a lot. They're going to have a backup running back in Trey Sermon, and then he hasn't been exactly lighting it up through the air. So it's like
play both.
Yeah, why not?
This.
You joke, but I always wonder if why shouldn't Joe Flacco? I'm not kidding you. I think that in 50
have Joe
years,
Flacco come in on third down.
In 50 years, I really do
third
think
and longs.
No, I'm saying Joe Flacco and Anthony Richardson running a read option where there's if Joe Flacco hands it off to Richardson, Richard then has his own option of it's like an RPO after the read. And I do actually think that one day that'll be a thing. Why wouldn't that work?
The problem is there's not enough good quarterbacks.
The Colts have two. That's all you need.
I feel like that would not work. I cannot imagine Joe Flacco deciding whether or not he wants to hand the ball off to Anthony Richardson, and then Anthony Richardson doesn't know if he's getting the ball or not, gets the ball, and then has to decide if he wants to run or throw.
It would just be an RPO. So it's Flacco puts the ball in Richardson's gut and looks, and he's just like, do I throw the slant or not? And if you get the slant, you get the slant. And if you don't, Richardson takes it, runs to his throwing side, and now he's like, do I keep it or do I throw it? Like, how the fuck do you defend that?
This is the Armageddon question again. Can we just teach a running back to throw better? Are we teaching a driller to be an astronaut? Or are we teaching an astronaut to drill? I feel like you could just teach a running back to throw a pass.
Yeah, the quarterbacks are the astronauts.
Or like maybe just have Joe Flacco play quarterback. That's probably
that could work too.
It's like the galaxy.
It's always a tough sign when it's like, is the backup playing? If so, start every player on the team.
Yeah, and again, fantasy football, we have our rankings, fantasyfootball.theringer.com. We'll have that updated again Sunday morning. And I know Trey Sermon, if you have bye weeks, you could play him if you want, if Taylor's out. But
I like the Jags. Jags need to win.
To me, this is...
Peterson's done. Doug Peterson's fired if the Jaguars lose this game.
This is not a good Costanza because I don't think anyone believes in the Jaguars either. But part of me in the back of my mind is like, Richardson's going to go out there and throw for 350 yards. Just because we've all given up on him at this point already.
We haven't given up on him.
I know, but it's pretty scary to think about him going in there. Like you're going to sit all his receivers because he's in there.
I mean,
I don't think you have to sit his receivers, to be clear. The Jags defense has been awful.
I think you sit everybody but Michael Pittman.
I think you play Pittman. The Jags are terrible. And again, the Jags, Doug Peterson's like, I've not lost the locker room, which is what you say when
that's
you're
what
about to lose the locker room. Brandon, that's like what Brandon Staley said right before they gave up 70 points.
Also, the Colts have not won in Jacksonville in 10 years. Does that make any sense? The Jags have not been good since when? How can you not have won in Jacksonville? They're in the same division.
Pathetic.
They do that every year. Are you kidding me?
I know. Next
games, baby.
Next bad slop game. Yeah, speaking of other divisional, honestly, these are all just bad slop divisional games. This is a rule of mine. Don't bet on games between bad division rivals.
Yeah, division rivalry games are just impossible.
Yeah, it's just like how like random, it's just like, you go to like random places and like Europe and you're like, oh, this city hates that city. And I'm like, why? And they're like, well, 400 years ago. And I'm like, you're like, wait, why do the Raiders hate the Broncos? Or dude, in the 80s, I'm like, okay, I don't have time for this. But anyway, Raiders Broncos this week.
This
Broncos
is like a
2.5.
Big fat skip.
Yeah, it's a skip. Basically, it's just Devontae Adams. He's not going to play. We'll have all week to talk about Devontae Adams. I think he's going to be on the Jets, and if he's not on the Jets, he's going to be on the Saints. But he will be unhappy and not playing for the Raiders until then.
So, that guy loves
the Steelers are interested. Apparently, I saw a report. The Steelers want to make a trade.
Yeah, the Steelers are desperate for a second wide receiver, but Devontae only wants to play with his friends.
He's not going there. I will say to the Saints, James Jones was on one of those Fox Sports shows. I don't know, but he made the point that the Saints receivers coach was Devontae Adams' high school coach and I guess mentor or something, and college coach, and also his personal receiver trainer. And sounds like their Saints receiver coach is closer to like a member of Devontae Adams' family than just some former coworker. So I think it's not just Derek Carr and Devontae had a great college experience 12 years ago, which makes a lot more sense to me now. So anyway.
What if he got traded to the Saints and then the Saints immediately traded Derek Carr again?
That would be awesome.
Adam's
for
like,
Jimmy
what the
G.
fuck?
Oh my God. Next bad slop game. This is the worst slop. Dolphins are at the Patriots. Miami's giving one. This is pathetic. Tyler Huntley versus Jacoby Brissett. I think this is, play Drake May already. And then I think the real problem for fantasy, Tyreek Hill and I think Jalen Waddle's unplayable. Yep. He's getting no points.
Tyreek is borderline unplayable, dude.
Dude, I'm not going to lie. I don't think we have a fiduciary responsibility sometimes to not say things that could be used against us. However, if my life depended on, and this game's already going to happen by the time you hear this, it's Thursday afternoon. If my life depended on like Darnell Mooney or Tyreek Hill this week, I would pick Darnell Mooney to have more.
100%.
Look, there's always a chance Tyreek houses a pass like for 95 yards. But if you look at the utilization for the last 3 weeks, Tyreek is the wide receiver 67. He's got 63 yards on 12 targets in the last 2 weeks.
You have permission
Waddle's
to bench
the wide receiver
Tyreek Hill.
71.
Waddle
and Devon Achane is like almost benchable this week based on how he's played and how the offense is run the last 2 weeks.
Do you guys think in fantasy that the Dolphins are a little bit of a buy low? I know it's incredibly risky. The Dolphins basically have 2 more games until Tua can theoretically come back, which is week 8. They have a bye in week 6. So they just have 2 games, week 5, week 7, and Tua's coming back. Adam Schefter reported Tua is symptom-free. He's met with neurologists, and he hasn't received any feedback that has dissuaded him from not continuing to play.
I 100% think they're buy low. If you're listening to this on Friday, I was on Bill Simmons' podcast today too. And I did 5 buy lows at Bill's show, but one of them's the Dolphins. And it's for everything you said. If you're 3-1 or 4-0 in your league, or 5-0 or 4-1 after this weekend, the people, if there's anyone in your league that has like 0 or 1 wins and is Tyreek Hill, they don't have the time to wait the 3 weeks till 4 weeks till Tua comes back. But if you could just add Tyreek Hill in your flex, and if Tua is back and even close to anything they're playing in the offense is, I think that's exactly the kind of move where you give them someone to help them. And that's where you want to find a trade partner where you need different things. Like if you're 4-0 and they're 1-3, find a way to get them. In one of my leagues, my friend traded Tyreek Hill for Zach Moss. So it can be done.
Wow, really?
Yes. So it can be done. And I would go,
trade.
Tyreek and Achane specifically are guys that if you're 4-0 and going to make the playoffs, probably I would go do that. I would get that done. Next. All right. We Sunday Night Football. Craig, Cowboys are at the Steelers.
Yeah.
This is a fun game.
It is a fun game. These two teams just like look good on the football field together. Two classic franchises. It's nice to see. I mean, how many Super Bowls have they played against each other? 3?
They've won like 10. I don't know how they played.
But yeah, look, same with the Colts, who actually turned out to have like a decent run defense now. The Cowboys have a terrible defense. And if this is a game where the Steelers offense is going to put it together again and look good again and run the ball, which weirdly they haven't really been able to do, it's this game. The Cowboys, DeMarcus Lawrence is on IR. Micah Parsons is probably not going to play. 27th in defensive DVOA. It's like there's something like in my head. I'm like Justin Fields beating the Cowboys, the Steelers beating the Cowboys. Like sounds wrong, but I really think the Steelers can beat the Cowboys in this game, even though their offensive line is banged up. I think this is like a very nice.
Steelers are favored by 2.5.
It still doesn't feel right. Like that. Looking at that, I'm like, man, really? Like this offensive line, Justin Fields is going to beat Dak Prescott and the Cowboys. But I weirdly feel confident that they can do it this game, which probably means the Cowboys are going to drop 40.
Is this a Costanza bet?
I think the Cowboys. I actually think the Cowboys are like the best money line bet of the week. I think the Cowboys. I get they don't have Parsons and stuff, but like, man, the Steelers are just the most classic, not team that doesn't show up when they're favored.
100%. I don't know. I've never been sold. I know Bill's been all in on the Steelers this year. I've never quite been there. I just feel like this team is going to turn back into a pumpkin. I think the defense is really good, but outside of like Justin Fields launching the ball to George Pickens, like this team doesn't really have a lot. This is why they want Devontae Adams. So, I still get nervous about this team having to score more than 20 points in a game.
Dallas's defense is bad, but I don't think it's bad in a way that Pittsburgh's prepared to take advantage of. So I actually think I would actually think the Cowboys offense will prevail.
This is a real, like, if not now, then when for Najee Harris. If Najee Harris doesn't have 100 yards in this game, I don't know what the fuck's going on.
Next up, Monday Night Football. The Saints are at the Chiefs. Chiefs are giving 5 points, which is a weird number. DK, other than Rashee Rice, just we'll see what the hell's going on there.
Yeah.
If Patrick Mahomes was named something else, I'll make up a name. Daniel Jones.
Mm-hmm.
Would you play him in fantasy football or would you cut him?
In a one quarterback league.
In a one quarterback league, if Patrick Mahomes hadn't won just 2 back-to-back Super Bowls and was better than Tom Brady, would you? I mean, I feel like based on what we've seen from Mahomes this year, there's no reason to play him.
It even goes back more than a year. I thought that Mahomes might be a buy low earlier this year, and I'm already regretting saying that because just the way that they're playing the way they're playing offense now, especially with Rice out, it just is not a good situation. They're just basically ball control, slow the game down, turn it into a slog, and Mahomes is not passing deep anymore, or very rarely, and he's basically not been. I want to say like he's finished top 12 in the last calendar year, like once or twice. It's been like a long time that he's been kind of struggling. So I think especially with Rice out now, it's tough. I don't know what to expect from this team. I think Travis Kelce gets a massive bump with Rice being out. That's one thing I will say is like maybe Kelce's back to save the tight end position because now Rice is not running the routes that Kelce used to run. I think they're just going to go right back to Kelce. They're kind of in a position now where they have to rely on Kelce a little bit more than they were early on in the year. You know, they're kind of just like, look, we don't have to push it with Kelce because we got Rice here and he can do the things that we want to do with Kelce. But now it's like they kind of have to go back to him. And I'm also very excited to see if they get Xavier Worthy going a little bit. If you look back at last year, Rashee Rice barely did anything for the first 11 weeks of the season. And then as the year went on, he went absolutely nuclear after week 11. It was like, I don't know why they were just like ramping him up or whatever, but maybe they see if Xavier Worthy can take off a little bit earlier than they had with Rashee Rice last year, get him going, get him in routes, like short and intermediate routes, because right now he's basically, or through the first couple of weeks of the season, he was just running a lot of like clear out routes. And so I'll be interested to see how they utilize him going forward.
Have the Saints had a national game this year, or have they had a primetime game? Is this the first primetime Saints?
I feel like it is.
It's a fun game.
Unless they get a Thursday. Did they have a Thursday game? I can't remember.
I don't think they did.
The Saints, no, this is their first prime time. They've been at 1:00 Eastern every day this season, but they have Thursday football in 2 weeks versus the Broncos, which, oh my God.
And this is the Chiefs. Is this the Chiefs' fourth primetime game in 5 weeks?
Yeah, the Chiefs play every day of the week this year.
Yeah,
except,
I believe
Tuesday.
I think this is their fourth primetime in 5 weeks. This is an exciting game.
The Chiefs' schedule is great. It's literally unlike anything else. The Chiefs this year they've already played Thursday, Sunday. Now they play Monday. And then they'll play Black Friday, and they'll also play Christmas Day, which is a Wednesday. So every day of the week except Tuesday this year.
They should just go play a college team on Tuesday one week.
Oh, that's good. Yeah. Versus the MAC.
That'd be,
FCS.
It's just like their practice. They just have
it's
a college
like the early
team come
season
in.
games in college. Yeah.
Yeah. They televise it.
Alabama plays fucking, I don't know what.
Just bring like
Rice.
Texas A&M Commerce in on a Tuesday to the Chiefs facility. They can play a game, televise it, done.
There probably are like FCS receivers that would help the Chiefs right now.
Yeah, probably.
Your boy Justin Watson's going to have a huge role here.
Justin Watson's had such a weird career. Like I think he's good, but he's just like a guy the Chiefs I think like and can do what he's supposed to do.
Right.
And yet no one talks about him, thinks about him.
I think about him all the time.
You wake
Heifetz
up,
loves that
first
guy.
thought, Justin Watson.
Well, it's because, Jackie's mom taught him in high school.
Oh, that's right. Oh, yeah. You said like did you say he's like a nice guy or something?
Very nice guy, yeah.
Nice.
He was in high school, according to the teacher.
Well, he was going to take, he didn't want to take
nice
AP
young
Cal
man.
because he was worried it would affect his ability to get to a football program. And she was like, it's hard, just do it.
Where did Watson go to college?
Penn, baby.
Wow.
Thanks to AP Calc. Bang.
That's why.
Honestly, they could probably use some doctors from Penn to diagnose Rashee Rice. That's really what they need.
Honestly,
The Penn Quakers.
I'm not going to lie. When I saw the Rice injury and everybody was like ACL, I was kind of like, I don't think so. I've seen a lot of ACL tears in my day. It didn't look like one.
Wow. Okay. Good job.
While we're
Maybe-
talking about Jackie,
I don't feel like we're not quite sure it is, but yeah.
I'm sure. I'm willing to
right.
say that right now. He didn't tear
All
his ACL.
Cool.
it's a diagnosis. While we're talking about Jackie, can I ask you guys to settle an argument that I had with Jackie this week?
Sure.
What could go wrong?
I'm sure she's in the next room right now loving this.
So Jackie and I we're going to have a Halloween party later this month. And we were setting up, first, the Partiful, like the little ad, there's like a whole new app now that people say, it's just like a party invite thing. It's like it's just, we're writing the description for like a group text basically to like text people the invite. And we were like writing it together, and Jackie was like, "Oh, I want to do a play on like the Addams Family, like Wednesday, like the Addams Family theme."
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, "Oh, it's a great idea." So then she writes out. Now the Addams Family thing is they're creepy and they're kooky and mysterious and spooky and all together. So she writes out, "Hey everyone, so excited to throw this party. Come to our super creepy and kooky, mysterious and spooky, blah blah blah." And I'm like, I love that, but like, can we cut like super creepy? And she was like, no, I really want creepy. And I'm like, I just don't think we should have a party where we're like, hey, come to my super creepy party. Jackie really wanted this. Now she goes to her office today and all her coworkers are like, there's nothing wrong with that. And I'm like, am I crazy?
Are you only inviting people you're very close to?
Yeah, but
Then
you
who
want like,
cares?
the first line above the fold is like super creepy.
Here's a more important thing. Who cares?
No, I'm like, if you're sending this out to like coworkers you're acquaintanced with, I get it. But if these are like all your best friends, who cares?
Yeah, you're not asking people to show up as like a lecherous old man in the house next door.
Yeah.
It's creepy as like the Halloween version.
I
of
know.
Don't
it.
you guys have people over all the time? Like it's you. It's fine.
I didn't care that much either. I just was like, I don't know.
He
super
cares.
creepy parties.
He's never cared more about anything in his life.
Wait, can you say the first line again? Not of the
Oh,
song, but of Jackie's exact invite.
It was, let me get this right or I'm going to be in trouble. The exact line, the proposed line was, join us for the 3rd annual super creepy, mysterious, and spooky costume party.
So she cut out kooky?
I suggested, why don't we do, instead of super creepy, mysterious, and spooky, why don't we just do super spooky, mysterious, and kooky?
Why don't you just do the actual, like, I feel like it's weird to say, come to our creepy party. Why don't you just use the actual lyrics? Just say, like, we're creepy and we're kooky, mysterious and spooky. We're all together ooky, the Heifetz family.
Well, we already sent it, but I'm just hearing about it again, so that's all. Anyway, it's fine. Or maybe all right, so I'm the asshole. That's the thing. I just was like, I don't know. Can we just cut the word creepy from our party invite?
I think this is a great new bit. Am I the asshole?
It's like, yeah, am I the asshole?
Also, I didn't.
Asshole?
It's funny that you already sent it. No, yeah. I mean, if I had to pick an asshole, it's not Jackie.
Yeah,
I'll leave it at that.
Yeah, I'm gonna agree with that one too.
All right. Well, there you go. All right. I think that's all we got.
All right. I noticed I didn't get an invite to this party.
Same.
Yeah, no.
I heard it's going to be creepy
offended.
though.
That's what I didn't want.
Heifetz, these are all your best friends. You could write anything on that invite.
Exactly.
It doesn't matter.
Those are the people most likely to make fun of you for putting super creepy in an invite.
Oh, so you're just worried about being made fun of? Whatever.
Yeah, they're all just gonna. Yeah, all my friends will be like, "Oh, excited for Heifetz's super creepy party tonight." That's all I'm gonna hear.
That's better. Honestly, it's more small
it's good.
talk.
It makes it it makes it memorable.
Yeah.
Sure. All right, that's all we got. Thank you, DK. Thank you, Craig. Thank you, Kai and Carlos. Thank you, everyone, for listening. Follow us on social, Ringer Fantasy Football. Emails ringerfantasyfootball@gmail.com. You can email us suggestions for the categories. Also, comment on it. Follow our Instagram at Ringer Fantasy Football on Instagram and Ringer Fantasy Football on
TikTok. We got a TikTok. Like all the kids these days, we got a TikTok.
We're on the talk.
Comment to stay on fantasy football TikTok.
Boom. Submit suggestions for the Sunday categories, trivia questions for Monday waivers, fantasy court for the Tuesday recordings.
DK will be going live. Is it Sunday morning on TikTok, doing all your favorite TikTok dances of 2024?
Yeah, he just dances in exchange for Venmos.
Yeah,
That's our Sunday mornings. And Start Sit is at fantasyfootball.theringer.com on Sundays. Thank you, Lord.
Thank you, Radiohead.
I don't like Radiohead.
I'm a creep.
Oh, that's good.
I've never got Radiohead. Didn't click with me.
Okay. I feel like this is the first time in the history of the show you're like, I don't like them.
All right. Goodbye, everyone.